fashionable in the court of Snefru. He had just opened the turquoise mines, so this was a real treasure that she had lost. But the other interesting thing is that this young woman, just a rower, is in the presence of Snefru, the pharaoh, a god. But she's not afraid to refuse his offer of the amulet. She must have been at ease with him. He must have been viewed as an approachable, kind person. The story has a happy ending. Snefru calls for his magician, the one who got him into this spot in the first place. And he comes, and he recites a magical spell that parts the waters of the lake. This is centuries before Moses did it with the Red Sea. They retrieve the amulet from the bottom, the young woman starts rowing, and the pharaoh's heart is lightened. Now, Snefru was the pharaoh who marshaled all the resources of Egypt for his fantastic building projects. But he didn't do it by being a tyrant. He was viewed as kind. 1,000 years after his death, he was viewed as the beneficent king. He was somebody we really would have liked.
Snefru was ambitious. He was the first pharaoh with international aspirations. Any time an Egyptian set foot outside the borders of Egypt, it was a bold and dangerous venture. If you died in a foreign land, far from the priests, the embalmers, and the rituals, you couldn't be mummified. All hope for eternal life in the next world was lost. It was Snefru who dared to defy custom. He sent his army on trading expeditions, north to Lebanon for tall cedar logs, east to Sinai for turquoise and minerals, and south to Nubia for gold. Under Snefru, Egypt became an international force to be reckoned with. Snefru was famous for his expeditions into the Sinai to mine turquoise. Such a venture required enormous organization. Taking 500 men and donkeys into the eastern desert required probably 30 boats for transport on the Red Sea and 50 tons of food a day. Once across the sea, there was a difficult 5-day trek by donkey to the mines at Wadi Magara. Tunneling into the mountains in search of turquoise was dangerous. But an even greater danger was the hostile Bedouin tribes. Snefru and his army made the Sinai safe for the miners. It's strange to see a boat carved on a mountain in the middle of a desert. But boats were an important part of the expedition, and the men wanted to record it all. This was a daring adventure they would talk about for the rest of their lives. They were crossing the Red Sea into foreign territory. There was a real chance they would never come back. It must have been much like our World War II veterans. And just like Kilroy, they left their mark wherever they went. On top of a mountain was a sacred cave where the miners slept to have dreams of where the turquoise would be found. Here the men built a shrine to the goddess Hathor, mistress of turquoise. Building the shrine took workers away from the mines, but the kindly Snefru permitted it. He even sent skilled stone carvers so the men could record their expedition's success, creating a field of engraved tablets. Today, this field still stands, pretty much as it did in ancient times. This one simply lists the names of the men on one expedition. But this one tells a story of suffering and heroism, The pharaoh's treasurer is recording the expedition he led. Because of the burning Sinai heat, winter was the mining season. But these hieroglyphs tell a different tale. Right here's the punchline. We arrived in this land the 3rd month of the 2nd season. These guys went in summer. He goes on. In the summer, the mountains branded our skin. These miners weren't slaves. They were willing to risk their lives to bring precious turquoise back for their pharaoh. The turquoise that the miners brought back from the Sinai was fashioned into butterfly inlays for finely crafted bracelets, gifts from Snefru to his wife, Queen Hetepheres. Snefru wasn't just a pyramid builder and explorer. He was a patron of the arts. His royal workshops produced extraordinary masterpieces of sculpture, painting, jewelry, and furniture. It was an astonishing age. The artistic achievements during Snefru's reign were so stunning that they set the standard for the next 2,500 years. The Maidum geese look as natural today as when they were painted 4,000 years ago. The statues of Snefru's sons are the first great portraits in stone and have never been surpassed. The fine limestone portrait of Ankaf shows him as a mature and thoughtful man. A bit heavy, he's successful. Ankaf's brother, Hemienu, has rolls of fat. He's really prosperous. In the Cairo Museum is another of Snefru's sons, Rahotep, and his beautiful wife, Nofret. They sit side by side, their rock crystal eyes staring out at the thousands of visitors who stop to see them. There's a wonderful detail here. Egyptian women often wore wigs, and you can see Nofret's own hair on her forehead peeking out from under her wig. The furniture that Snefru had constructed for his wife is among the most beautiful ever made in ancient Egypt. They're masterpieces of simplicity. The lines are straight and clean and elegant. No need for a gaudy display of gold here. Merely beautiful gold hieroglyphs to proclaim the queen's titles. All of the queen's treasures, including her beautiful canopied bed, were placed in her tomb for her enjoyment in the next world. The ancient Egyptians were resurrectionists. They believed that the body would get up and go again in the next world. This is why the Egyptians practiced mummification, a complex religious ritual that took 70 days to preserve the body. It was absolutely crucial to protect the mummy from tomb robbers. If a robber entered the tomb and destroyed the mummy, then the deceased couldn't exist in the next world. Without an intact body, all hope of immortality was lost. And this was the worst catastrophe that could befall an ancient Egyptian. Once the mummy was preserved, an elaborate tomb was built to protect it for all eternity. These first tombs were called mastabas. These mastabas were carved into the bedrock beneath the sand. They would be covered over with a large superstructure made out of bricks. The ancient Egyptians called them the houses of eternity. This mastaba was one of the largest ever built. It has a remarkable feature that should have prevented it from being robbed. There is absolutely no access to the burial chamber from above ground.
I'm going down into the mastaba the only way possible. Through the robber's entrance, they tunneled through the mud brick, through the bedrock, and into the entrance to the burial chamber right here. This is the burial of a very important person, probably a queen or a prince. This sarcophagus is the first one in history. The body was placed inside, the lid was slid shut, but still it was robbed. Here's the robber's mallet that they used to prop open the lid. After the burial, this chamber was roofed over, and in spite of the 100,000 tons of mud brick and stone that were placed on top, it was robbed. Sneferu had a big problem.
His problem was that it was almost impossible to stop tomb robbers. Even in Sneferu's time, his own wife's tomb was robbed. No matter how complicated the passages inside the tomb, the robbers could find the treasure. The reason was that often the tomb robbers were the very men who built the tomb and knew it best. The answer to tomb robbing was to create something so massive that even if the robbers knew where the burial chamber was, they couldn't get to it. But Sneferu wasn't the first to try this. It all started at Saqqara. The step pyramid of Saqqara was completed during Sneferu's childhood, and it would have a profound effect on his life. The amazing thing about the step pyramid is that it's the first major stone building ever constructed. You would think that first there would be small stone buildings, and then larger and more ambitious ones, until something really grand was built. But it didn't happen that way. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, was the step pyramid. There are all kinds of signs that the Egyptians were just learning to work stone. The masons were merely copying columns and walls of existing palaces, built out of bundles of papyrus reeds and mud brick. Because they were faithfully copied in stone, wonderful architectural details were rendered completely non-functional. Doors that can't swing open or shut. Reed mats rolled up over doorways that can't be lowered. This is where building in stone began. 2,000 years after the step pyramid was built, the Greeks were proud to say that they learned how to build in stone from the Egyptians. The step pyramid was designed for Pharaoh Zasser,